Hey guys, it's Greg Murphy from BustProofBusiness.com. I'm here with Caleb Roth from eFLIP, the book flipper. And we're going to talk, I know a lot of you guys have recently joined eFLIP. And what we're going to talk about today, we're going to do a walkthrough of the program in general. We're going to talk about some specific strategies and some tips. And yeah, it's going to be great. So right now, let's just get right into it. So hey, Caleb, how's it going today, man?
Hey, it's going great. Nice to catch up a little bit before this. I'm like I said, I'm in the Midwest. I'm back in your neck of the woods here.
Yeah, where the temperature changes. If you don't like the weather, just wait till the next day. We've
Yep.
basically been monsoon season, at least here in Ohio, for a little while.
It's been rainy. I actually drove out from Denver, took a couple days and went to a wedding in Missouri, and then drove out here the rest of the way and went through a ton of rain earlier this week. So it's sunny outside today, which is nice. And once we're done here, I'll get outside and enjoy it.
Awesome. So let's go through eFlip in general. Let's go. How does the software work? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so the main premise of eFlip is we've assembled a database over the last several years of a little over 23 million titles. We filter that down. We put everything with a decent sales rank, less than 3 million, into our database. And we've got the vast majority of books on Amazon in it, and we're always adding to it thanks to crowdsourced data from Scout IQ. So if you're using Scout IQ in the fields and scanning material, thanks for that, because ultimately some of those ISBNs are trickling back into this. The whole concept behind eFlip was created for people that like stay-at-home moms. You're stuck at home with kids. You can't get out and source. You live in the middle of nowhere and don't have access to a lot of inventory. You don't want to play the bulk game like Greg's doing and buy books by the truckload. Or maybe you live out of the country and it's a great opportunity to tap into the larger book market here in the US without actually having a physical presence. So what eFlip is a way to source books on Amazon. We're going to buy books merchant fulfilled at a low price. We're going to sell them at a higher price using the Prime program or Fulfilled by Amazon, and you're going to pocket that difference between them. Now, there's several strategies that you can employ to do this. We've actually redone eFlip just a couple months ago, and it's extremely powerful, and I can't wait to show that to you. And we're going to look at several strategies. eFlip there's kind of two categories. One is textbooks, and you can buy textbooks in the off season. And Greg, it's right now we're getting really close to textbook season, and we're excited because it's just going to be a tremendous several weeks of sales. So just the laws of supply and demand. You're an economics guy. In the off season, textbook prices get pretty low. People aren't buying them. Lots of people are listing them. And then as we get into textbook season, the price goes back up. And the beautiful thing about textbook season is that unlike Christmas, textbook season happens twice a year. So we get a really good rush in January and a really good rush in August and September.
And what's awesome about seasonality as a sales principle in general is that it's not like demand's not coming back around. We understand and can take advantage of the fact that prices for textbooks just go down in the off season because the supply is still there. It's just that the demand isn't there. And so seasonality, it's a big influence. And the reason that we can do this kind of arbitrage is because of seasonality. That's why textbooks are always going to be special. It's always why we recommend utilizing the Prime program for textbooks all the time, because there's just nothing better in the world than when there's, a 22-year-old kid is using his mom's credit card because he forgot to buy the textbooks and needs them right now today, and he'll pay whatever to get them. And versus when it's April 3rd and it doesn't matter how quick you get the textbook because you don't need it for a long time.
Exactly. And also, I think you and I, just at the heart of it, we love economics and supply and demands. And we love to think that the market is terribly efficient, that if there's anything mispriced, it gets fixed right away and that the market just kind of self-corrects. That's not the case on Amazon. And one of the really cool things we'll show you is how to find mispriced inventory. Or sometimes two sellers will get into a bidding war and drive the price way down. So normally a book is selling for $50 and the book doesn't sell that often, maybe once or twice a month. And two sellers just get into a bidding war with each other and just undercut each other by a penny or a nickel. And that happens several times an hour for several days. And before you know it, the price tanks to $10. So we'll show you how to find those offers as well. Those are great. You can pick off a few low priced offers and then just reprice them where the market should have been all along at 50 or 60. And that's another great way that you can use eFlip to find those books.
And what can happen sometimes, the reasoning behind that a lot of times is that information is expensive, right? And so when some of these larger sellers have 300, 400,000 listings, they're not paying attention to individual items. They're looking at their book stock as like an inventory of actual stocks, right? Like they're looking at it as a stock portfolio. And so they're not paying attention to each individual book. They're making rules for all of them. And so what you can find is these small inefficiencies that littler, smaller sellers like us can take advantage of.
Well, and just a fun story too. I know you've got some custom repricing stuff going on. Do you set rules based on how old it is? Once a book is, let's say, 3 months old, do you treat it differently than new inventory?
Um, Not as much. What we basically, a big part of our strategy has to do with how close we are to textbook season.
Okay.
So remember, most of our stock that we have for in FBA are textbooks now, and books that we can't, that aren't super profitable merchant. But
Yep.
there has to be a big enough gap to make it make sense. And for us, that's just because of the fact that I have access to staff that's going to have to be here anyway, and I have access to space to put the books. If I didn't have any of that, it would all go FBA, right? So, but because of all those things, what we pay attention more to how close we are to textbook season. That's how we come up with our price.
Yep. And then do you eventually dump stuff after it's been there for a while? Because you
Yeah,
can't just keep stuff on your shelves, right?
right. That's the plan, is for us to dump after we get through probably the current textbook season. Some stuff, once it gets over that 6-month period nowadays, you got to move it or dump it. I bet we'll dump before we hit the long-term storage fees for the 6 months. We'll probably dump about 80% of the inventory and then have about 20% of it sent back.
Yeah. And you may want to look at the numbers just a bit. The long-term storage fees do kick in at 6 months, but they don't really hurt until you get to 12 months.
Well, it depends on your ASP, right? It depends. Like
Oh,
if
that's true.
you got a lot of people have access. They're selling their textbooks 60, 70, $80. If we're selling stuff that is marginal, 25, $25, it makes a big impact on those kind of books.
Sure. Real quick story. I was in the market for a car recently. A couple of weeks ago, I was looking around. I don't like to buy new. I like to go just a year or two old, wait for the depreciation curve to drop off and then snag it. And I was looking for a car. I had it settled what I wanted, was looking for something that was a 2015. 2017 came on the market, same car, just 2 years newer. And it wasn't that much more expensive. The price had just dropped. And my first thought was, well, what's wrong with it? So I
Yeah.
called the dealership, and it was, I ended up getting a car that was not made by this dealership. They got it as a trade-in. And I asked the guy, I said, why'd you just drop the price? What's wrong with this? Is there any accidents or multiple owners or something weird on it? He goes, no, single owner. It only had like 5,500 miles on it. It was like the guy never drove it. And I said, why'd you drop the price? He goes, we've been sitting on it for 45 days. Today's day 46. We didn't sell it as fast as we wanted to. We're just dropping the price and moving it. And so a lot of bigger sellers too, shelf space is at a premium. They're going to sit on it. And even if it's a textbook and it might go back up in August and it might go back up in January, it's the middle of April and they've been sitting on it for a couple of months and haven't sold it. They're just going to drop the price. They're going to be super aggressive. And so the market is extremely inefficient, and that's where the opportunities come from. So somebody's opportunity or somebody's need to get rid of something is your opportunity to snag it.
And, we talk, some of the guys that do this, some of the biggest textbook guys, that are around, come to, the live event that we have in Dayton and talk about, what it is that they're doing. And what happens is that they just, like you said, they have 700 copies of this. They're happy for you to buy it for $20 and then send it into Prime and get whatever. They just need to move the stuff that they have.
Yeah, exactly. And I tease you too. I buy your books a lot, try and resell them. And you're like, yep, I'm willing buyer, willing seller. I'm happy to sell it to you.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
So, well, let's jump in. There's, like we've already mentioned, this is ideal for those that are looking for extra sources. I do want to just clarify, if you haven't signed up for eFLIP yet and you're looking to jump in, if you're brand new and aren't yet really familiar with Amazon, this is probably not for you just yet. We have had some brand new people jump in and beginners, and they can figure it out. But there is a learning curve, and your mistakes here are going to cost you $5 or $6 or $7 because that's kind of the floor price for books on Amazon now, versus $1 or 50 cents at a thrift store. So if you're brand new, this may not be for you. And if you've only got $100 that you're able to spend, this probably isn't for you as well. We do want to make sure you have a little bit of capital, ideally $500, $600, $700 a month that you're able to pour into this. Otherwise, you're just not going to be able to buy enough to build that portfolio of inventory that makes sense. So those two clarifying points out of the way, let me figure out how to share my screen and we'll jump in. All right, can you see that?
I can indeed.
Perfect. So I'll kind of move our ugly mugs out of the way and we will jump right in. So this is the eFLIP layout. If you sign up for the books database, you actually get 3 search interfaces, and we're going to spend all of our time on the new interface. One is our original interface. It's all books. And again, it's everything with a current rank under 3 million. We'll show you what these sliders mean in a second. We've got a textbooks interface. And actually this is every book in the last year that has actually shown some sort of seasonality. So we've actually been tracking the data points for the last 2 years. We're able to go through the books and say, hey, 2 things. One, did the rank improve significantly in the 6 weeks between August 1 and September 15? As well as did the rank improve significantly January 1 to January 31? If yes, it's likely a textbook. Secondly, we looked at the price move up significantly. So not just are people buying the book, but did the price move as well? And if that happens, if either of those happen, or if they both happen together in some combination, we actually throw it into this database of known textbooks. So this is the only database to my knowledge that does anything like this. And you're going to get some, paperback stuff that, Dover thrift editions as well, but you're going to get some pretty good textbooks. So if you're in the textbook game, and that's where the real money is made, especially if you're willing to buy in the off season, sit on it for a little bit and then sell it in season, this is where you want to spend your time. We're actually going to spend our time in the newer interface. This is called Outliers, and we'll walk through this. So again, if this is your first time seeing eFLIP, we'll walk you through it, explain what we're looking at, and then we'll walk through probably 3 or 4 strategies and then wrap this up in about an hour. So what we've done, again, we're in Outliers. We've got this set up. We've got a series of filters here, and you can drag the sliders as much as you want, or you can come in and you can type in any price you want. And what we're doing is we're going to say, hey, we want to find books that meet certain criteria. And the way this works is you can set any 2 prices that you want to compare against. And this is extremely powerful. In the past, we only looked at the lowest used price, the lowest new price, and Amazon's price. That's it. And you could use that and kind of fine tune and find really good books. What we've done instead now is we've built this out where you can look at any of the used prices that come back. So we've got the lowest used price, the second lowest used price, third lowest, fourth, fifth, 10th lowest price, the 15th, which is the highest that we can see in the API, which is the data we get back from Amazon. And then we can actually throw the lowest prime prices into this as well. So there's really 3 strategies with eFLIP. One is buy low merchant fulfilled, sell high FBA. And you can do that incredibly easy now because we have the FBA prices in our database. We're the only ones that have this data there. The second thing you can do is buy textbooks in the off season, sell them during the season, which you have the textbooks database to do that. And the third thing you can do is find mispriced inventory or outlier inventory where the price is artificially low for a short period of time and you can sort of recorrect the market. So what you can do is you can set, I want to look at the lowest price. You can compare it to any secondary price if you want. We could say I want the lowest price to be, let's just give some examples. I want the lowest price to be between $6 and $15. I want the lowest prime price to be at least, let's say 30. We'll leave the buy box alone. The buy box is really important because we can only see the lowest 15. So anything on the left side, these 2 price filters, we can only see the lowest 15 prices on Amazon. About 50 to 60% of the time, there are 0 prime offers in the lowest 20. So if we actually set this and tried to find a prime price here, it just may not show up. I'll show you what I mean in a second. We'll actually explain that. The used buy box, even if it's not in the lowest 15 offers, is almost always the lowest prime price from a reputable seller. So this is extremely powerful when you're trying to buy merchant fulfilled and sell prime, and you should probably be using this. We can also look at the new buy box, which again, same rules as the used buy box. It's almost always the lowest prime new price from a third-party seller. Amazon's price is just what it is. It's Amazon selling it brand new. We can look at the sales rank. Again, we go up to 3 million, and you can type in any combination of sales rank in there. eScore, for those of you who don't use Scout IQ, eScore may be a new metric for you. eScore is the number of days with at least 1 sale in the last 6 months. So it goes from 0 to 180. If the eScore, here's some examples down here. If eScore is really high, 167, 171, again, it's a theoretical max of 180. This book is selling nearly every single day, probably every single day. Books on the lower end of that, so if the eScore is 1 or 2, it's not selling very often, and you should be a little cautious if you're trying to buy it to resell. It's not likely to find another buyer. And then lastly, we can look at the number of used offers. So you can drag these sliders around as much as you want, and what happens is wherever you set the sliders and then hit search, It's going to find every single book in our database that's on Amazon that matches all of that criteria. And this will make finding good books extremely easy. So let's actually show you some examples.
Can I ask before we do that? Can I ask you one quick question I have?
Yeah, sure.
So the FBA one price, is that the used FBA offers, or do they check for new if there's no used?
We're only looking at used. So we're pulling the lowest 15 used offers, and those go into here. So 1 through 15, and these are all used. Used 1 could be an FBA offer as well. It's not necessarily just merchant fulfilled. And we can, there's a lot of rationale behind that. But we're basically taking the lowest 15 offers. If they're FBA, we call them out separately. And then we also look at the used buy box, which is low. Basically think of this as low used prime, low new prime, and then Amazon. And then we have some other filters over here.
Awesome.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So let's jump in. For those of you who are familiar with eFLIP, any of the other databases, they're extremely quick. You set your filters, hit search, and within less than a second, you get all the results. This one is quite a bit bigger because in the old one, we're storing 3 prices: low used, low new, Amazon. That's it. In this one, we're storing Amazon, new buy box, used buy box, and 15 used offers. So we're storing nearly 20 prices, which basically just means it's harder to search through. So some of these searches will take 4 or 5 or 6 seconds. Understand that is making your work infinitely easier. I can't say infinitely. That's a marketing word. We can't quantify it. It'll make your job 10 times easier. How's that? So we're going to look for books that are the lowest price right now is between $6 and $15. The lowest prime price, if it's visible, and I'll show you what I mean by this in a minute. If it's visible, is at least 30. Let's just search from there and see what happens. We're looking at a rank between 0 and 750,000, and we'll take any e-score. If you're brand new to this, I would caution against setting your filters. And you can see it took 4 or 5 seconds, and here's all the results. You can sort these results by any of these categories. You can simply click on it and look for it. We show you if Amazon's on the listing or if there's no offer. We show you what the rank is, the e-score. Looks like we're filtered by rank right now, low to high. And if you want to filter by used price or FBA price, you can certainly do that. So again, the main goal of eFLIP is to find cheap merchant fulfilled books that have high prime prices. So we can actually click through and see if this makes sense.
And these are, real quick, these are landed prices as well, correct?
Everything here is landed, which means it should include shipping. Amazon's API is full of discrepancies and things that don't make sense. So every once in a while, something just looks funky. Just ignore it. It is what it is. A lot of times Amazon will represent that they're on the listing and they actually aren't. So there's some weird things. Also, this is not live data. We're not actually, there's no way to query this much data live for every user every single time. So this is actually a database. Everything in here, we update it around the clock. So a couple thousand ISBNs get updated every minute. And everything in here eventually gets cycled through and updated typically in under 24 hours. So some of this data, you'll click through, you'll say, hey, there's supposed to be a price at $11. Let's go look. And maybe that price is still there. Maybe it isn't. Someone beat us to this one in general, because you can see the lowest price here is actually 15 plus 4, so it's 19. So someone beat us to it, and that's okay. That happens a lot, not a big deal. And then the FBA price should be 32. So if you click the title, it brings up all offers. If you click on the ISBN, it's going to bring up the prime offers only. And you can see Amazon's in this one a little bit cheaper. Also, just launch sellers like this, they're not going to qualify. Let me, real quick, let me shut off some other software here. All right, try not to keep things going. All right, can you still see everything?
Yep.
Okay. Brand new sellers can't qualify for the buy box. And again, if the used prices are not in the lowest 15, like the prime ones here, they're not going to show up. So that's kind of how the software works. There's a lot of other filters you can tweak or play with. So for example, here, the lowest used price is $8 and we're like, great, we can sell it for, $35. Well, not necessarily, because Amazon's on this listing for $9. So when that happens, we can't really price higher than Amazon. So one thing we'd actually want to do as well is make sure Amazon's on this listing for at least a reasonable offer. One of the new things we added to eFLIP was the ability to raise this up, let's say to $40. And we can also say, I want to include items where Amazon's not on the listing. So let's run the same search again. Again, you always want to start your searches broad. Think of it as a funnel. Start at the very top of the funnel and just see what happens. Figure out why you're not, you'll find some good ones in there, but you're still doing a little bit of manual searching. and then try and figure out how to get a little narrower and figure it out. As we look through here, for example, here's an e-score of 15. So the book looks good. You can buy for 11, possibly sell for 48. Amazon's not on the listing. Now there is a new buy box that's 26. So someone is selling this new Prime for cheaper. Let's go look at it. And so here's an example of the API again. Amazon didn't represent that they're on the listing. They actually show as 0. And the reason for that is they're back ordered. Now they're going to come back into stock, and it's not great to price higher than them. So one of the ways, again, we could further refine this is say, hey, we want the new buy box also to be at least 40. But again, it's okay. There's basically, you're going to be clicking around trying to find the best possible offers. And right now I'm just explaining how the filters work. We're going to hone in this, and then we'll find some offers as well. If you're watching this now, this is a recorded session. And so if you go and try and look at some of these ISBNs and you go, wait a minute, this looks nothing like what I'm seeing, that's okay. That's, if you happen to catch this right after we launch it, some of these will be okay, and you'll get some great buys.
So this is basically magic, right? Like, so, I mean, this is way easier than it's ever been before, right? Like using the Outliers makes this like super, super easy.
Our dream, yeah, it is kind of magic. Our dream was always to put the Prime prices right into our database, and that the data was harder to get. It's different API. It's just harder to do. And we like hard tasks because if we can do it and it's difficult, that makes it more hardest for other people to get in and do it as well. So our original goal was to get here. We didn't actually get here until we launched Scout IQ and had access to all of that data. So let's walk through a couple examples. So here's one. The lowest price should be $14.53. Let's see if it's still there. It is. Again, it's $10.54 plus $4 shipping. So we're right at that $14.50 mark. So here's a book you can buy in very good condition, reputable seller, ships from New York. Everything looks great. They've got good feedback, another good seller, good condition. We've got lots of good offers, and we can see the lowest Prime price is $40, and then Amazon's on the listing for $45. We're not going to do a Keepa training here. I've got a couple on Amazon, on YouTube. You can go over there. We'll talk Keepa some other time. And Greg, you and I have talked about this in detail before. Here we can see the price history on this particular book. The rank is phenomenal. It's almost always been about 10,000. I don't see a lot of seasonality. The rank gets slightly better in December. Maybe that's a little bit of a Christmas type deal. A wine book makes a great Christmas book. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a textbook based on what I'm seeing, but this book sells well a lot. And right now it's actually a little bit cheaper. So we can buy this book in that, $10 to $14 range down here. And we're going to try and sell it Prime for this $40 range. The basic rules are the more often a book is selling, the higher a Prime premium we can ask for it. And Greg, you're only selling textbooks Prime at this point, right?
Unless there's a large enough bump, unless the bump is like, I think $8 or more.
So this would actually qualify for you. If you came across this book on your line and you saw it selling for $14 used, merchant fulfilled, or $40 Prime, you would send it in Prime?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So if this book was only selling 2 or 3 times in the last 6 months, I'm not going to ask for a $30 premium for Prime. That's not likely to happen. It could. Someone is going to buy a book. Actually, let's pause real quick. The used buy box is incredibly powerful because people just buy that. They think that's the only way to buy a book.
Correct.
We're doing a little bit of a pricing experiment, and we're pricing all of our books or a subset of books at $2,000 right now. Merchant fulfilled, and we're just trying to get some extra access to data and just kind of play around with just some of Amazon's algorithms, right? So we were merchant fulfilled. For whatever reason, we actually got the used buy box as a merchant fulfilled seller at $2,000.
Wow.
Meanwhile, on the same listing, there were new offers for $30, used offers for like $60 or $70, and somehow we were the most reputable seller in Amazon's eyes, and they awarded us the buy box. So my wife texted me yesterday and said, hey, we just sold one of our test subjects for $2,000. And she sent me the ISBN, and I pulled it up and said, well, that's not right. I can sell that for, I could buy it for $30 and drop ship it to the guy, because we don't own the books. We're just trying to test some algorithms. So she's like, what do you want me to do? I'm like, well, we could drop ship the guy a book for $30 and profit $2,000, but I guarantee that's a mistake. And I'm like, you should probably email the guy first or gal and just see, and just say, hey, did you mean to buy this book from us? And if he says, yeah, then send him the book. She texted him, and it turns out he's like, oh, I thought I was buying a $30 copy. He just went to that magic corner. Amazon's got it figured out and just said, add to cart. It was the buy box, and we somehow won it. So fortunately, canceled the order. We didn't have a $2,000 sale. We had to cancel our trip to Jamaica.
Well,
But that's the power of the buy box.
That's an amazing story. And not only that, there are entire businesses on Amazon set up with that exact same premise where they'll have these, you'll see they'll be on almost every listing at about 2 or 3 times the cost of most of the books.
Yep.
And then somehow, I sincerely believe that there's a big subset of customers who all they do is they bang their head against their phone until they buy something. And then, so there's people that are either the buy box or they're just scrolling through listings and adding things. I don't know how in the world you could possibly spend $2,000 sober and think that you're only spending $30. I don't understand.
Well, this was in the morning too, so it's not like it was a 2 a.m. purchase. I could understand that. Someone's got a few scotches in them and makes a bad decision. But just looking at this example, some people buy based on the name. Book Outlet, that sounds shady. Book Barn, that's shady. Books from California, that sounds okay. Maybe I'll buy that. Some people buy based on name. Some people look at feedback score. 98, 95, 95, 98. Maybe I'll buy from this guy instead. 89. Oh, I can't trust that guy. Some people buy based on condition. I don't know that condition matters that much. Price is not the only thing that matters. And somehow we think it does, but it doesn't. Sometimes it's when it's going to arrive. Sometimes prime's all that matters.
And sometimes it's the other way too. My father, when he buys stuff on Amazon, he doesn't buy the cheapest one because he doesn't think it's good enough.
Totally. Right? That's pricing philosophy.
Absolutely. It's the other thing where if it costs more, it must be better. Right.
Well, Jeffrey Clark and I had lunch today. We were talking about refrigerator manufacturers that slap on, they make the exact same fridge, maybe a slight tweak, but that's it. It's the same company. And they throw just a different brand name on it and come in at $250, $350, $550, $1,000. And there's some people that just say, I have to have the best. I have to drive the Lexus. And they're going to pay whatever because they have to have the best. Some people just need something to keep the food cold, and they're going to buy the cheapest. And actually, most people, if you give them 3 options, they're going to buy the one in the middle because they go, I'm not a premium buyer. I'm not a cheapskate. I'm somewhere like Goldilocks. I'm in the middle. I'm going to buy the middle one. And so there's a lot of people that skip this and go, well, that, it's too good to be true. I'm going to buy, this is a $20 book. I'm going to buy a $20 book from somebody else.
And that again goes back to the thing about how information is expensive, and we only have so much brain power and so much time to spend on these kind of tasks. And so, we think that money is valuable, and so we assume, well, if it's more expensive, it must be more valuable. And the time that people can save, by making those choices, to them, it's a perfect transaction. They don't have to spend that time anymore.
Exactly. And we could debate for hours here. What's the psychology behind buyer behavior, consumer behavior? And honestly, it's fun to discuss and try and figure out. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I think it's the wrong question to say, why are they buying? The right question is, are they buying? If yes, then we're going to provide that value to them.
And Caleb, that's as someone that owns a retail business, I gave up on that a long time ago.
You're not going to figure it out.
Put motivation to why. Was it too hot outside? Is it too cold? Too rainy? I just don't get it. I just look at trends over time. But some days the parking lot's full. Some days it's empty, and I don't know why. And but I just give up trying to figure it out.
Exactly. So let's go back to this book at hand. It was a good little side road discussion there. So again, the data is telling us that it's 1453, which it was. The lowest prime, or FBA 1 lowest prime, is 4023, which I believe that's still accurate. Yep. And in this case, the used buy box is also the lowest prime price. And for those that aren't familiar with the buy box, let's just go back to the product page. The buy box is what happens if you come to this page and you just say buy used prime. A lot of times it'll show up here. And Amazon tweaks this all the time. Sometimes it shows up front and center. Sometimes there's 2 boxes. Sometimes they'll hide or mask the buy box. They actually won't even be there on certain titles. In this case, if you came to this page, you could buy it brand new from Amazon for $45.20. You could buy it used from whatever seller Amazon gives the magical buy box to. In this case, it's this Just Quality Book Company. If you add this to cart from here, it magically skips all these cheaper offers that start at $10.50 plus shipping and puts the $40 offer in your cart. And a lot of buyers actually go through this. So the buy box is extremely important.
And it doesn't even show you if you go back real quick, it doesn't even show you, well, it does there.
It's buried. It gives you the condition. It's good. And it says, it says who the buyer is, but ultimately you think you're buying this from Amazon.
And it doesn't tell you what's wrong with the book. You don't get to see the description.
I guess we can click detail. There it is. Kind
Oh
of a
yeah.
little pop-up. Yeah.
Right.
But again, Amazon's always tweaking this. If you come back and actually if you pull this up on your computer, you may actually see a different buy box than what
That's
I
true.
see.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the buy box is extremely important. One of the textbook guys that came and spoke at your event lost a buy box just randomly. Amazon said, hey, there's a glitch and you don't have the buy box. And they were without it for several weeks. And I asked them to go back and look at their sales because people say, well, the buy box is important for toys, sure, but not for books. Their sales dropped 50% for the several weeks they did not have access to the buy box. So buy box is a big deal. And that if you sell Prime and you have a professional account, that's some of the best ways to get it. So this is great on the surface. We can pay less than 15. We could probably sell it for $39.95 or $40. And the question is, all right, what about fees? Because the weight of the book plays a role. We can actually pull up a calculator. We know the book weighs 4.67 pounds. We're going to pay $14.53, including shipping. You can change that if you're buying a different book. And this gives you a couple ROI options. If you want to make 100% ROI, you need to price it at 45. We're not going to quite get there, so we're going to get close to 100% ROI. Let's just say we come in at $39.95. After all the fees, we're going to spend 14. We're going to make our 14 back plus 1038. So we're going to spend 10. We're going to profit 10. That's a 71% return. And you go rinse and repeat. And actually, on this particular book, I would probably buy 2 or 3 copies because there's several reputable sellers here that are selling the book in very good or good condition. So a book like this, you can see these 2 sellers are a penny apart. If we come back in a day or 2, they might continue to reprice and beat each other. These are great. These are the outliers that we're looking for. So the lowest offers are $14.50, give or take. This offer, including shipping, is $23. So we can buy 2 offers at $15 and effectively, it's like stock trading 101. We can move the market price from 15 to 23. Now, instead of somebody paying 15 merchant fulfilled or 40 to get our offer, their options are 23 or 40. And if you wanted to be a little more risky and buy this book, there might not be profit. We'll go plug it in a second. You could buy the 3rd book and move the price up to $28. And now someone paying 28 or 39 is not a big differential. Someone will pay that in a heartbeat. So that's eFLIP in a nutshell. Let's try that $23 book and sell it for 39. There's probably no profit. $2 of profit. Probably not worth your time. That's a lot of investment to make 8%.
Does this include what all does this calculator include? Is there a standard outbound shipping? Is there anything like that included?
Yeah, so you can see it here. You can see the selling fees, inbound shipping. We calculate it. I think that's 30 cents a pound. Yeah, it's 30 cents a pound. Okay. That's not editable at this point. That's pretty conservative for most people, depending on where you are. We're in Colorado, so we pay 35 cents a pound. A lot of people in the Midwest pay 20 cents a pound. And if you're doing pallet shipping, it's going to be better than that. So we factor in Amazon's fulfillment fee, which is based on the weight of the book, selling fees, which is 15% plus $1.80, and then the inbound shipping. So that's just the first book we looked at. Let's look through a few more. Again, as we go down here, and I actually want to explain some of the differences in the buy box, and then we'll move on from there. You see the lowest prime price matches the buy box. This one, it doesn't. So we'll go look at why that's the case just a second. Here, the lowest prime matches the buy box, matches. This one doesn't. Let's go look at that one. So the buy box is 35. The lowest prime is 34. So let's see why they didn't qualify. Let's see if the offers are there, first of all. So it looks like there's 3 offers here now in that range, and probably one of them owns the buy box. Amazon doesn't really care about condition. I think if they're similar, sometimes condition plays a slight role, but it's mostly based on feedback. This Gus Grinder person probably does not qualify. They only have 3 feedback, so they're probably not going to get the buy box. Let's go look and actually see who has it. So here's, again, a different iteration of the buy box, but if we bought it used, it's going to be from Text BAM. Let's go back and look here. Waiting on Keepa. All right, so Text BAM is actually the lowest price, and they won the buy box. And probably a couple hours ago, they were slightly higher. So that's probably what happened there. Let's look at one other one. Here's a $39 book, the lowest prime. The buy box is closer to 50. Let's see if those offers are still there. Looks like the buy box, somebody already bought that. So the $50 price is gone. 39 is still here. The reason they didn't win the buy box is because they're brand new. So let's go look. The buy box probably now is 80 bucks. Let's go look at that. This might be a good book to buy, actually. So yeah, the used copy, they're skipping that lowest prime offer because it's a brand new seller. And if you were to buy this book used, you could buy it from $6 plus shipping, so roughly $10 out of pocket. Or if someone was just in a hurry and said, I trust Amazon, I'm going to buy the used copy here and add it to my cart, they're going to pay $80. And this happens more often than you think, especially with textbooks. Let's go look at this one. This may be a good flip as well. So here we can buy in acceptable condition. I don't like to buy books in acceptable, although a lot of the bigger sellers, so again, these guys have 26,000 feedback, 1,000, those aren't too big. This one's a much bigger seller. A lot of these bigger sellers just mass grade everything as acceptable, and you can actually get some pretty good stuff. You know, this one actually says why. I like to stay away from water damage, so I'll stay away from, you know, anything that says water damage, I stay away from. Heavy writing, not usually a deal breaker. Again, students don't care. They're just buying a textbook. But I do like to buy good or better if I can. So in this particular case, this book may not be a good flip because there's not a good copy or a very good copy for sale. Let's show you the difference between, so again, this strategy we're doing real quick is buy merchant fulfilled low. So we're buying cheap and then we're selling prime a little bit higher. You got a question, so go ahead and chime in.
Yeah, I do. I just wanted to make a statement. I think something's really cool that you didn't really cover right now. After Caleb can you scroll down a little bit through? After Caleb clicks on a link, it changes the color of the link. So you can tell. How long does it stay that way, Caleb? Is it for the?
It'll stay as long as your browser is storing things. So it actually stores in your browser's cache.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
So
if you've clicked through, if you do another search, a different search with different parameters and the same titles come up, they'll stay gray. And so you can actually see if you've clicked it. If you want to reset that, you can go clear your browser's cache and book or history, and it'll actually reset and you can be back and running again.
That's super awesome. That's so great because you can. I mean, I've done this before you created eFLIP. I've played around with flipping some stuff before, just based off. You know, I would sell a book and then I would look in and I'd sell a book in FBA and I go through and see if there's super cheap merchant fulfilled copies back in the day, and it would stink because you could always tell what you've already searched for. But this, I mean, yeah, this just would make things so much easier.
Yeah, and a couple other things for research. Again, when I click the links, I'm actually looking at, I've actually got a Keepa Chrome extension installed so I can see the price history and see if it's a textbook or make some other decisions. Again, the green line is how often it's selling. This one got really popular in January, so that's probably a textbook, and it got really popular last September. So that shows a textbook pattern to me. Right now, you could buy it for 14 bucks with free shipping in very good condition, and the lowest prime right now is 42. So that's a big difference. And then it jumps up to 42, 44, 45. So this, you can see the data here. If you're not a Keepa fan, you can actually click right over to Camel from here. Camel is another research one as well. You can kind of look at the price history over time or see the sales rank as well. So if you want to do your research, you can do that as well through here. And then we've actually got a couple other links, since I forgot to mention these in the intro. We've got a link to Keepa if you don't want to have the Keepa extension installed. We've also got Addall and Bookfinder. These are just two other websites that essentially pull all the data together. So we can buy this book for 14 bucks on Amazon. Bookfinder is going to look at other websites, and so will Addall. So this is going to take the same ISBN that we just looked at, and it's actually going to say new books are on the left, used are on the right. So actually, there's cheaper copies available from Net Tech Store in this case, which is Nebraska's wholesale division. Nebraska Book Company. Now this is international edition, and you got to be careful. There's a lot of junk out there, and these are on different websites. So this is on Alibris, this is on A-Books, softcover international edition. I like to buy on Amazon personally because they're going to protect me. If I buy junk, they're going to, let me return it for free, and it's not a big issue. Some of the other marketplaces are going to be tougher to do, so you got to be careful when you buy elsewhere. But you can find this particular book cheaper. And then you can see the cheapest should have Amazon's data as well, is 1403. So they're pulling Amazon's data. So if you like to buy on other marketplaces, or if you find a good deal and you can only buy one copy on Amazon and you want to go stock up elsewhere, we have that research tool within that drop-down menu for every single book. So again, this particular book we could buy for 14, in very good condition and sell somewhere in that $40 range, and it is selling a lot, so that's probably going to happen. Again, we can plug the calculator. This one's a lighter book. The lighter the book, the cheaper the fees. So we're going to pay 14, and let's just call it $39.95 again. And in this case, we'd make 93% return. And again, we treat this as a portfolio. We're going to target 93% return. Maybe we get a little bit higher. Maybe the price drops. We don't quite get it. Maybe we only get $29.95. So you can play around with different price points. We'd still make money. We'd still make $4 or $5 at that price point. And again, we're treating it as a portfolio. I don't want to make income claims. I don't want to be, I don't want to get audited by the FTC or anybody. But stock market, you're looking at an 8 to 10% return for the year if it's a good year. So that's kind of the historical returns on the stock market portfolio. Here, if you're looking for 100% returns, they're out there for sure. If you're looking for 200 or 300%, they're out there, but they're harder to find. If you're looking in the 30 to 50 to 60 to 70% returns, you can find those all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. And so that's the power of eFLIP. So let me show you one other thing. There are a lot of books. Let's do the exact same search. We're just going to move the used buy box to 30. So instead of the lowest prime, we're actually going to look at the used buy box, which should be the same. However, we're going to do one little trick. We're actually going to take both of these sliders and slide them down to 0. What this is going to do is it's going to find books, again, where we're the cheapest merchant fulfilled. The lowest used price is $6 to $15. The used buy box, or the lowest prime that Amazon gives credit to, is $30 or higher. I didn't touch anything else. And we're going to set the lowest prime to be null, or basically not there. So let's do this search. What's going to happen here is we're going to find books that have 0 prime prices visible in the lowest 15 offers. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. This is probably the search you should be doing instead of looking at FBA 1. You should probably set this, you could just set it to 0 and all the way up and look at everything. So all these books have what we just call, it's null in our database, but it shows as no value here. So these are books where there's 0 prime prices in the lowest 15, which means most repricing software, if they're trying to look at this book, they can't see a visible prime price to compare against, and it's not likely they're going to drop the price. So let's go look at one. Here, the lowest prime price should be $34.99. Let's see if it still is. Again, prices change all the time.
I've sold so many of those books.
So this is actually interesting. So the lowest prime price is not $34.99. Now, there is a $34.99 on the listing. Let's see. Was it $34.99? We also highlight the last book you clicked on. You can see it in blue here, just so you're okay. It looks like the used buy box is $34.99, which maybe is book you. Let's see who actually owns it. Yeah, it's kind of like seeing old friends on here. You see the title and you go, I've sold that one before. So the used buy box actually dropped to 25. And again, this happens a lot. The prices change on Amazon all the time. Our database updates within 24 hours. So not a big deal. In this case, it was $25. Let's see who won it. So there's 2 cheaper prime offers lower than them, but you can see both of these are relatively new. They don't have the greatest feedback, 80% feedback, 5 total ratings. They're probably not eligible for the buy box yet. Bargain lenders, 88% may not be eligible, 17 may not be enough. So actually Amazon went to this guy who has 100% feedback and 40 ratings. So they're considered legitimate. And actually this one's in stock. So if someone bought that, they can't even buy it for a little bit yet. So that's kind of how the buy box is odd. But in all of these cases, there's no prime prices in the lowest 15 offers. And these are great books. You see we have pages and pages and pages of offers that meet that criteria. So that's a second way to run the search. So that's the first way to do it, is to find cheap merchant fulfilled books you can sell prime. Let's show you one strategy that's slightly related to this, and then we'll get off into something entirely different. So that's buy low, sell high. Now we're going to buy high, sell higher. So again, if you have some capital to play with, I love the higher price books. 1, there's fewer people doing it. 2, the way the fee structure works, on a $10 book, Amazon's going to take 60 to 70% of that in fees. On a $100 book, Amazon's only taking 20% of that in fees. It's just the way it works. There's a fixed fee in that. And so the higher book, the more expensive the books you're selling, the less Amazon's going to take in fees. So let's raise this up, and let's say we want to find books that are selling between 25 and 40 as the cheapest used price. Let's say the used buy box is at least, let's say 90. We'll just type in a number. Let's make the new buy box, or the lowest new prime, at least 90, and we'll make Amazon be on the listing for at least 100. or we've checked this box that says they're not on the listing. And we'll go ahead and search that. Again, always start your searches broad at the top and then get narrower later. I know what I'm doing, so I'm not afraid to kind of mess with the settings. But if you set the filters too granular, too fine-tuned, and search, you might get no results. Here we've got only 2 pages of results. We could open that up further by saying, let's go up to 1.5 million. But again, you can start narrow too, and then just back off until you find stuff that meets your criteria.
And while we're waiting for this, so Caleb, when you built this and had this idea for basically the cheat mode for, even the cheat mode now for eFLIP, which Outliers is, in my opinion.
Yep.
Why didn't you just say, hey, never mind, I'll just buy all these books and do all this yourself? Why include this with eFLIP? Can't this just make it really easy for you to make all the money?
Yep. However, and not to say this to brag, there are too many opportunities out there. One, what we know from SalesRank is Amazon sells 100,000 unique books or unique titles every single hour, because if a book sells within the last hour, the rank drops to about 100,000. Doesn't matter if the rank was 1 million, 5 million, 10 million an hour before. As soon as it sells a copy, it drops to close to 100,000. So that means at least 100,000 titles are selling roughly every hour. If you figure the average sale price of a book, let's just be conservative, including shipping, is $10. That's $1 million an hour that are getting spent on Amazon. And on top of that, many of these books are selling 2, 3, 5, 10, 15 copies in an hour. So we're looking at $1 million an hour, $24 million a day, probably closer to $30 or $40 million a day. And that volume is so large, I don't care how much capital you have. I'll brag just for a quick second. We had our best week of purchasing 2 weeks ago. We spent $86,000 in 1 week on Amazon.
Wow.
For stuff that we intend to resell. And I guarantee we barely put a dent in the market.
That's amazing.
So yeah, I'd love to keep this for myself and just buy all the books. However, there's more books than any one person could buy. Even if you had investment capital, there are so many ways to slice it. So here we're also being limited because we're only looking for books that have no prime prices in the lowest 20. So I just thought of that while we were looking. So I'm actually going to raise this up and say, I'll let the lowest prime price be anything, 0 to anything. Let's research that, or research that again, not research it. This will actually bring back probably several pages of data. And again, our strategy now is buy high, sell higher. We're looking for slightly higher price books in that $25 to $40 range here that are selling for at least $90 in the used buy box. So you can see that. And now we've got several pages of books to just start searching through. If you wanted to further refine it, we could say, hey, I want the e-score to be at least, 5, 6, 7, whatever you want it to be. We'll leave it alone for now. So here's a book theoretically you can buy for 33 and sell for 100. Let's see if it's still available for 33 and make sure it's good. Again, personally, I don't like to buy acceptable books unless it's a reputable seller. So here it is, $33.99. And there's a couple books in the acceptable range, and the lowest good price is actually 60. So this is actually an interesting theory or interesting way to run it. One, you could buy from, this is a textbook buyback company, Books Run. They got a good feedback. They're probably just listing as acceptable. You could probably buy it. And again, a student's not going to care. Let's look at the Keepa zoom out. This is a very typical textbook pattern. Very, very popular in September. Very, very popular in January, kind of that green smile. And you can see the price is high in the fall. It's high in January. And now it's in the off season and it's actually quite low. So this is a good book to buy now. And you've got 6 weeks from where we are to actually hit the tail end of the textbook season, which is plenty of time. Now, this particular one, you could roll the dice and buy acceptable, or you could actually set through Keepa, you could actually set up some sort of alert and say, hey, if this book ever drops below $28.99, so if it drops a penny, or if someone comes in and undercuts this lowest price seller, I want to know about it. Keepa will actually email you as soon as that happens, and you can sort of set up alerts. This was actually one of the strategies I was going to give. We're just getting into it earlier because here's a good example. This particular book, let's see if the prime price actually is what it said it was. Should be about 99 and change, and it is. So this book, if somebody happens to jump back in that $20, $30 range, you could buy it for 30 and quite realistically sell that for $100 because that's where the cheapest prime prices are. Mm-hmm. So that's just the first book. Let's go find another good one. So here's one that should be selling for about 37. The prime price should be about 90. Let's see if there's any good copies available. Here's another good example. I guess let's just talk about the strategy since it's popping up. The strategy is to kind of set a number of books that you're going to go after. So actually we saw Gus Grinder on one of the earlier books. That's kind of funny. Maybe they're a newer seller ramping up because they only have three ratings. Gus, if you're watching this, hello, thanks for watching. And I hope you can get the buy box soon. In this case, somebody listed this book and it shows up in the API. It shows up as the $37 price, which is $30 plus $7 shipping. So 37 bucks. What's happening though is if you look at the note, it says teacher instructor. Well, you're not allowed to sell these on Amazon under the student edition listing. If there's a separate page, you can do it. And you can see their feedback's pretty poor. They probably play this game quite a bit. This particular book, a real student that actually reads the description isn't going to buy this book because it's not the right book. It's not the student edition that matches this. However, if somebody's brand new or someone's repricer kicks in and says, hey, it's been in my inventory for 31 days, it's time to just move the inventory. So let's say Aragon Books was at 75 bucks and they say, hey, it's been sitting in inventory, I need to get rid of it. Their repricer may kick in and undercut these guys by a penny. If that happens, you can pick that off all day, every day. So again, to do that, if you've got the Keepa extension installed, this is kind of a sniping tactic. Say track products. You can set an Amazon price. We can just actually delete that. It doesn't matter. New, I don't really care. Used, if it gets to a penny lower than it is today, I want to know about it. So you'll say start tracking and you'll have to log into Keepa. I'm not going to do that here, but now it doesn't like me. It thinks I'm a robot. Oh, there we go. So if you do that, you'll get emails as soon as that price drops. And the only reason that price is going to drop, these guys are probably going to stay on the listing relatively stable unless someone beats them. So we're just going to look for that. We're going to try and pick that price off, and because we can buy that for 30 and we can be the first legitimate offer at 75 bucks easily, or we could be the used buy box in the $90 range. Does that strategy make sense, Greg?
No, it certainly does. And it is interesting. I want to see
Here's a better book. So this one actually has good condition. Again, we've seen this seller before, Book Outlet. So they've got some good books and the price moves up quickly. It goes from 34 all the way to 100 bucks within 6 or 7 offers. So that's awesome. However, I noticed this book is not selling that often. It did sell a handful of times last August, September. It sold once or twice in January. I don't think this is a textbook. Maybe it's a fall semester textbook. This book's not selling that often. Maybe 6 or 8 times in the last 6 months. eScore in this particular one looks like it's sold 9 times in the last 6 months. So this is probably one that you could roll the dice on. Sure, you could buy it for 30 bucks, but I don't see a textbook pattern. I don't think it's likely to go way up in price in textbook season, and it's not selling that often to be interesting to me. So I'm probably going to stay away, but you could certainly roll the dice and pay 38 and sell it for 90. It's only a 60% return, and the odds of it selling aren't that high. It's a very heavy book as well, almost 8 pounds.
But if you look there, Caleb, the sales rank of this book, if we're looking at the same one, is 100,000, right?
Right now the rank's 100,000. So
that just shows us how bad of a tool sales rank really is, right? If it's only selling 9 times in the last 6 months, it ranked 100,000. If you didn't have all that information and you just looked at the listing, you would think that this is a slam dunk.
Yeah, and we're probably a day or two old. You can see the rank was just over 100,000. This is a great example. Green is sales rank here. Just before it sold, it was 1.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
The hour it sold, and again, Keepa doesn't necessarily track every minute or every hour either. They're kind of pinging it sporadically. The minute it sold, it dropped down to about 100,000. And the last time our database caught it, within the last day or so, it was around 100,000. Now it's going back up. The current rank is actually about 400,000. But that's why rank is incredibly misleading versus looking at eScore going, hey, 9's pretty low. Lower is worse. Higher is better. So this one's 53. That's a much better book. Let's go look at it. It should be 32 bucks, which it is. It's a good seller in good condition. So that's great. It's got much more of a heartbeat pattern, a lot of green squiggles, which is great. And this is a phenomenal textbook. Got a smiley face in August, September, smiley face in January. This is a very good book. And even it sells really well in the summer, which means it's probably a summer textbook as well.
And you might get super lucky and have a math lab inside.
Exactly. So and here again, we've got a brand new seller just launched. They don't get the buy box. So if we're looking here, the lowest prime price, we saw them at 78 bucks. The used buy box, which is really what matters, is $99, $98.95, which is the second guy in line. So you can buy this book right now for $38. 32. Let's see if it's still there at 32. You can buy a couple copies for $32 in good condition from a good seller, good condition from a good seller. You know, since it's used, may not have functioning accessories. No big deal. Amazon doesn't make you have the accessories either. This particular listing says it comes with an e-text access card. Most students still don't care. You may want to be careful if the listing in the title says it. But again, Amazon doesn't, you know, they'll still let the student return it, but they're not going to guarantee that it's there. So that's pretty common. So this book, we can pay $32 and get 99. And if that's the case, you make 137% return. And again, you may not quite get that during textbook season. Let's say the price tanks, you only get 79. Again, it's still a pretty good return. But I love looking at the higher price books because, again, there's fewer people doing it and the fees are less. So it kind of helps. All right, so let's clear this out. You can save your searches. One more thing I forgot to mention, you can actually copy this and just save it out somewhere else. And then you can actually paste that back in later and get the exact same search that we just did. So if you like a search and you want to come back to it later, you can save those out. And we've kind of built the URL to handle that. If you want to reset the search, and we'll do that in a second, you can just clear it like this. It'll actually reset everything back to kind of our standard, just nothing really set up, and we'll jump back in. So let's show maybe one more strategy, and then I've got to jump on some other calls here. And Greg, if you have any questions along the way, feel free to jump in.
Okay, for sure.
We're going to look here for, we've already talked about Keepa traps, you know, how to find a mispriced book or somebody that's selling an international edition. We're going to try and wait till someone reprices below them or a new seller comes on the listing. We've talked about buy low, merchant fulfilled, sell high, FBA. We've talked about buy high, merchant fulfilled, sell higher, FBA. Let's look for mispriced inventory. And not necessarily mispriced. Let's look for repricers gone crazy. What I mean by this is a book that, again, should be selling for, let's say, $50, $60. So let's say the used buy box is $50 or $60. Let's just call it 60. Let's make the new buy box 60 as well. Let's make sure Amazon's on it for, let's say, 70. And if they're not on it, we want them as well. We'll leave rank where it is. Let's find stuff that has an E-score of at least 6. It's selling once a month. So I'm not going to do too much over here. What we're going to do over here is we're going to say I want the lowest used price to be under $25. And I want the second lowest. So what you got to think about is, okay, if there's two sellers in a price war, there's going to be the price 1 and price 2 are going to be low because they're going to be a penny or two apart. And price 3 is going to be really high. So what we actually want to do is say, hey, I don't care about price 2. I want the third price to be at least $40. Okay. So what we're doing is we're sort of setting our trap with eFLIP. We're saying, I want to find a book that has two sellers that are cheap, under $25. I want the third price to have a jump where it's over 40. And let's actually set this to 20. We'll go to 40 here. What I'm after is something that's been mispriced, where I can buy a book or two and move that market price from $15 or $20 to 40 with a couple of clicks. So this is kind of a bully tactic or a stock trading tactic. Again, give it a couple seconds to look through everything in our database.
Now, while it's doing that, Caleb, is there any plans in the future to be able to sort the books by to pull out like acceptable books or something like that?
We've had a few people ask. The data's in our database, like we actually store the condition. I don't know that we'd add that or not. It's intriguing. I'm not going to commit right now that we'll do it, but I've thought about it. It'd be nice to say I want to look for good or better, for example. This particular search did not return a lot of results, and we can kind of ask some questions why, but let's see if any of them make sense. So here's a book that's $20. The third lowest price is $47. Let's see if that actually checks out or someone beat us to this. I will say when you try this strategy, there's people with much more advanced software and they're picking off these orders. So we can see the black line, which is the lowest used price, has normally been about $50 or $40. Right here, it dropped to 15, which is what our software saw. So there's a couple sellers fighting. Let's zoom in. And just about 2 hours ago, the price jumped. So someone actually beat us to this. It looks like there was probably two offers, according to what our data was looking at, that were in the $15 to $20 range. And somebody already bought it and moved that price to 40. So that's cool. We just missed it. That's all right. We'll go find another one. Here's one that should be a couple offers in the $14 range. and then it jumps up quite a bit from there. So that's okay. Again, this is, there's a reason it's a low price and it's not getting bought. You know, this is supposed to be, looks like a whole pack of stuff. This one's saying it only has units 3 through 9. So they're missing some of the items. They're not supposed to sell this on Amazon. You can get mad at them. You could try and report them, or you can set that Keepa trap again and say, hey, track it. If somebody comes in at $9.99 because they just want it gone, I want this book because I know I can sell it for $60. So just because you didn't find a great deal on that particular click, make sure you're thinking ahead and saying, hey, can I find another book? We only found a few offers, so let's actually change this a little bit. Let's say I want to find stuff under 15 that's selling for at least 30 with the third lowest price, and the buy box is 40, 40, 50. Let's see if that opens up anything. And again, I didn't preset this before we came in. This is just raw, off the cuff, just trying to say, hey, here's some searches that we can do, and let's just show you the power of the software. So here, again, we didn't even get 2 pages. We only have 13 results. Maybe I take back my comment about an inefficient market. People are certainly looking for these and buying them, but there's a few things we haven't tried yet. So here's a book that should be in the $7 range and go quickly up to 35. Again, let's see if it's still there, if someone got us. No, this is a great example. So here, 2 sellers went crazy. You can see over time, the price went from 45 and it just kept stair-stepping down as they kept undercutting each other. And now they both appeared to have hit their floor price and they're not moving anymore. So One Planet said 774 is our floor. They're making $1 or $2 profit at that point, or payout from Amazon. Half Price Books is saying, hey, we'll be higher than them by whatever that is, 8%, 6%, 5%. So this is an example. I can buy these 2 offers, both from good sellers, both in good condition, and I can move the price up to 30 with a click, and the lowest prime price in this case is 65. So I could probably list this between $30 and $60 reasonably. Now, the issue I'm seeing is this book doesn't sell all that often. The Keepa history we can see the last year, it's selling 3-4 times in the last 6 months. Looks like it just sold a copy. The rank just dropped. It went from 2.3 million overnight to 400,000. And it probably went to 100,000. Keepa just didn't catch it every hour. So this is a good book to buy. However, it's not selling enough to probably justify buying. You can see the e-score is low at 6. So that's maybe not a great purchase. But this, again, you're just trying to think through, how can I find some books that just make sense? Here's another book. I can buy it for $8, $9. The next copy is $12 and it jumps up to 26. Is it selling regularly? Actually, in this case, yes. It sells pretty well in January. That's a seasonality. That's a textbook. And it sells decently well in September. It doesn't sell very much in the rest of the year, but that's okay. I can buy 2 copies and move that price up to 25, where it normally is. We can see the black line normally is in this $20 to $30 range. And then Prime, I can get even a bigger bump on top of it and probably get closer to that $40. So these are the books that you're looking for. It's not a home run. It's not guaranteed to sell, but it's not that heavy. We can buy it for $8 and we can sell it for $39.95 pretty easily, close to a 200% return. And if we bought that second copy for $15, including shipping, and sold for the same price, we'd make a 75%. So that's the power of eFLIP right there. And again, one other way you'd want to play this is say, right now we're only looking for 2 people that have dropped their price and gone in a price war. What if a third seller came into the arena? In that case, instead of looking at the third lowest price, we want to do the same search, but look at the 4th lowest price. And now we're going to bring up a whole different subset. We'll bring up some of the same books. And again, that's why we turn the links to be gray, so you can see what you've clicked on. But we're going to go after a slightly different subset. Maybe there's 3 sellers that have gone crazy, and then the 4th price is high. So 1, 2, 3, 4th price jumps up to 30. That's great. This one's selling regularly, almost yearly regularly. A little bit of seasonality in September, not much in January. But again, you have to buy this in acceptable condition. Goodwills, as a general rule, price most things in acceptable shape. This one just says, may have shelf wear, due to normal use. I love buying from Goodwill because they pretty much list it as acceptable, and a lot of times it's very good. So that's a great book I would buy and then try and list in that $35 range. And we can see this book normally sells, at least in September, for about 30 or 40 bucks, $30. And Amazon is on it for 45. So we have a nice little range that we can play with. So that's eFLIP in a nutshell. I heavily encourage rabbit trails. Look at this, look at these items, take the same parameters. If we like that, we think that it makes sense to look at the 4th lowest used price and go look for really expensive books that meet the same criteria. Let's look at books that are, between 25 and 40 that, they jump up to 100 pretty quickly. And again, just try stuff. If you don't get any results, then, narrow it back down. Let's just see if this gives us any results, and then we'll wrap this up. Questions there, Greg?
I mean, this is amazing. This is a super easy cheat mode. And the only thing that's stopping anybody from making gobs and gobs of money is cash flow, right? I mean, if you have, I can see a way if you had $100,000 to spend in the month of July or the month of June or March, whatever, you could totally do that with the software at least a 50% ROI.
Yeah, I'd want to be cautious about making income claims there for sure. But yeah,
your mileage may vary. User void where prohibitive.
Yeah,
may have side effects, including all that stuff.
Well, we got to say cancer because everything in California causes cancer. So if you're in California, using this software may cause cancer. It's not our fault.
The point of the story is that there's lots of money that can be made potentially, but
most people are going to run out of money before they run out of options and good books to find. Yeah. And textbook season is a beautiful thing. August, September, like you say, you feel like a genius, and then the rest of the year you're kind of bumbling around trying to figure out when the next textbook season is coming. That's just the way it is. I would say too, treat this like a stock portfolio. You're going to be really right. Some of these books that you bought thinking you'll make 200%, you're going to be right. Some of them you're going to sell at that 200% point and it's going to go up higher and you're going to kick yourself going, why did I sell? I could have made more money. Forget it. You made your money, move on. Some of the books you're going to be partly right. You're targeting 100% ROI. The price dropped. It dropped. You eventually got 20% ROI. That's cool. You made some money. You can take that cash and put it back into books. Some books you're going to be, you break even. The price dropped more than you thought. And some books you're actually going to lose money or you'll just never sell. So treat it as a portfolio. Don't kick yourself if you could have got more money for it. If you sold it and made your price, be happy. If the price tanks, don't get depressed about it. Try and figure out what you could do better next time and just make sure your winners outweigh your losers. So this particular search, it looked for a while. It only found one book that met the criteria. So we'd have to back it off and not be so aggressive and try again. So I encourage rabbit trails, play around with things, see what works, see what doesn't work, and you'll develop your own strategies. And we didn't want to have just presets or drop-down menus with 5 or 6 options. We wanted to make this as customizable as possible because we want Greg and Tim and Jenny and everybody else to have different searches that they're using and give them opportunity to find books that no one else is looking for. So that's eFLIP in a nutshell. Greg, thanks for having me on. And
this was great.
If you guys have questions, there's a contact form right here on eFLIP. If you're not even a customer, you can contact us, reach out. We reply to everything on weekdays, typically within 24 hours, usually faster. And if you have questions as a customer as well, you can simply email us or we have a private Facebook group for members as well. So thanks for watching. Greg, any last comments?
No, I just think that if you guys aren't yet using eFLIP, if you're watching this and you're not yet a customer of Caleb's, I would totally suggest that. Wherever you're watching this, I'm sure there's going to be a link to eFLIP around. And definitely consider this. This is cheating almost. Like it almost feels like something's off with Outliers, right? Like, how is this even possible? This is something that's relatively new, right, Caleb? This is a recent addition.
Yeah, this is the last couple of months. When we actually kind of sneak rolled this out. We didn't make a lot of fanfare. We kind of rolled this out for our current customers and said, hey, what do you think? And we kept the old interfaces because people don't like change. So we didn't just force a new interface and a new database. We said, hey, you can still use what you're used to. That's fine. It's limited data, but it works. Or you can come to this more powerful tool. And we had people emailing us that night going, this is like same thing. This feels like cheating. I just bought 20 books instead of 5 books like I normally do. And I can't wait to just get back in there and keep buying. So we're really pleased with how it turned out. And we're excited to keep rolling out new things as well.
Awesome. Well, we'll talk about this again soon. Thanks, Caleb, and I'll talk to you later, buddy.
Thanks, Greg.
Mm-hmm.